I'm going to try to not use microphones, so if that's a problem, let me know.
This just doesn't sound like what it means.
So hopefully you can hear that. Thanks for agreeing to be here till, I don't know, like 6 o'clock tonight, because that's how long I can talk about this stuff. I just absolutely love this project and photography. I have been a photographer for about 30 years. I started back when I was shooting film, and have sort of graduated from that. But it is still absolutely fascinating. I think it is still the greatest art form there is, and some people would argue with me. I'm also a photography instructor, and all of this isn't even my day job. So it's just such a passion to be able to present this, and thanks to everyone for having me here, Del and Bill for inviting me. Also, I want to thank the Hillsborough County Library. Some of you have brochures on your desks. They hold the photos that we're going to see today, most of them. University of South Florida also has some in the digital collection, but I just cannot boot stomp enough the idea that we have such an invaluable collection of the history of Tampa all the way back from its very inception. We have a visual history of that. And I don't think enough people know about it. It's absolutely available to everyone. All of the photos are public domain, which means if you want to see it, you can see it. If you want to publish it, you can publish it. And I can't say enough about it. The people at the library are just fantastic. They are always willing to work with me, and over the time of COVID, which is really when this project started, it was tough because I needed to get some images, and there was some back and forth about how to do all of that, but they were brilliant in doing it and just so helpful in doing that to help me get it, as well as still having that collection. I won't go into all of the idea about the history of the collection because there's a lot of people who kind of got it to where it is with the library. Nonetheless, if you like old photographs, if you like old Tampa, if you like the history, and especially if you've been here a while, which is really what got me going, then go take a look at the over 19,000 photos that they have in that collection. Just absolutely astonishing. I think I've been through, 12,000 of them to sort of put this project together. And by the way, the project is ongoing. I published the book, but it really became an obsession. I can't stop. So my wife is suffering through it somehow as I go and continue to photograph what used to be in Tampa and what is here now. I've kind of labeled what I'm doing photo archaeology, because what I do is I look at all these prints, and what started it was I saw an old shot of downtown Tampa. I've been here since 1964, and I saw that and I'm like, wait a minute, I remember that. And I went and I took the same photograph and I sort of put them side by side and said, man, that is just so interesting visually to see what it used to be and what it looks like now. And thus the inception of this project. It wasn't really intended to be a book until I did more and more. Originally the idea was I took a film camera, a big film camera, and went and shot in the same place, stood in the same place that the Burgerts did, and shot with film. And did the best I could to replicate it, because that's what they did. Eventually what happened was I started putting them side by side, decided to put the book together, and then I talked with some photo editors that I know around town and some other folks. Ron was one of them, and said, what's the best thing here? The black and white by black and white, film by film, or a color digital next to the old black and white? And almost unanimously people said, the color digital shows really today, because that's what we're doing today, is taking color digital photos, and back in the day with film, and so that was where the project sort of took off. One of the coolest things about this project is it's a portal into the past. We get to see where we've been, and we get to see what the city looked like. And some of the images I'm going to show you today, and I'm going to play a little game with you and see if you recognize some of them. It's so cool for me anyway, as a photographer and as, I guess, a historian. I just love this stuff. what I was able to do with some of the photographs is I got them in high resolution, and with this idea about photo archaeology, I did what they call pixel peeping. So I could zoom in real close and really look and see things that you can't actually see when you see the images on the internet. And so some of the stuff that I discovered there was even more interesting because it was a statement about where we were back in the late 1800s all the way through 1960. So I could see the way that we looked at times, and that's what interested me most. On top of, then I dug into old newspaper archives, because as I was writing the book, I wanted to see what this thing was about, and who the people were, and so on. And oh my gosh, it's just so interesting to me to see what it all looked like. So part of the things that the architecture of Tampa, some of it is still there, some of it is not, but architectural detail and what we did back in the 20s, especially during the land boom, Davis Island, some of the architecture over there, Hyde Park, Ybor City, just absolutely astounding. Let me see if I can pull some of this stuff up here. So you've already seen this. These are the Burgerts. These are the brothers. It was actually started by their father, late 1800s, and then the brothers took over, and some people outside of the family were involved as well. These are the cameras that they used, and they were known for having the absolute best equipment and the best photographers and the best retouchers in town. And as the 20s and 30s rolled around, photography really was a big business. It really sort of came of age. Commercial photography especially, because they started publishing photos in newspapers, and if you were going to create some record of your business, most people wanted to have a photograph of it, black and white clearly. And so that was the big deal. There was another group called Robertson and Fresh, who did some of this same imagery, not quite as prolific as the Burgert Brothers, and so this was some of the cameras that they used. This is what it looked like, and I'm sorry for the small detail, this is what it looked like when they were around town shooting. They stood on top of their car. The reason being is because it made it look really cool, as well as there is a thing, I think I've got an image in here. Yes. This is called parallax distortion, and all that means is when you're down low shooting up at something high, you get that sort of funky look of the building. This is a really bad one, but nonetheless it's a good example. And what they found is if you raise the camera up to the level of the buildings that you are shooting, you don't have as much distortion to deal with, and so that was the reason for doing it. This is me trying to replicate what the Burgerts did, because if I'm going to stand in their shoes, then I want to kind of do what they did. However, I couldn't drive around Tampa all the time, putting a pallet on top of my car, climbing up on a ladder and shooting shots. One of the reasons is because the parking spots aren't there anymore. So I couldn't just park, on what was Lafayette, now Kennedy Boulevard, and take a shot going down Kennedy Boulevard because you couldn't park there. So I wanted to do what they did. I wanted to stand where they stood and see what they saw and sort of get that same angle. As I tried different ways of doing things, this is another thing, I could just sort of stand up on a ladder and put it on a tripod and so on. It was one of the ways of doing it, but it was too much. I'm standing obviously in a parking space here in Ybor City, but it was more than I cared to do, or more than I could do out of the hundreds of photographs that I've taken. So I went to something like this. That's my camera. This is on a tall light stand. That is my phone. My phone is connected to my camera. So as I raise that camera up, I can see in my phone what the camera is seeing and take the photograph. That is my iPad. That's got the old photograph on it. So I wanted to, I'm And I'm telling you, you can put a slideshow of most of these images and it slides across, the lines match. Roof lines, curb lines, they look exact. And that was the idea behind it. So, I wanted the old photo, I wanted to be up high, and this is the way that I eventually did it. And here's a picture of me doing it. So it's, that camera's super high, and I can see what it's seeing and take the shot, and that was the idea behind the process here. And absolutely loved it. And by the way, if you're out on the street shooting with something like this, all kind of people want to know what are you doing. And I love talking about it. And more people say that is the coolest thing. Because when you're shooting in West Tampa, or you're shooting in Ybor City, or you're shooting in downtown, folks are just very interested, especially these old buildings. And so usually, again, I'd have my tablet there and I said, this is what that building used to look like. What? Just that sort of spark. That's what I'm after. Just to get people interested in our history, in the photographs, in what this awesome town was and is, and how some of it's changed. Like I said, some of this also, this used to be where the Wendy's is, now we're on Kennedy. But it also sort of allowed me anyway, to see not only the people, but also some of the disenfranchised folks. I don't know if you can see this gentleman over here in the corner. Obviously an African-American man who's off on the side. And it's not political commentary, it's just a matter of, look at the way we used to be. And I saw many images like this of, he's there, but he's not. And so, again, it sort of spoke to our history related to that, I think. And again, here's another one which is just super interesting to me. I don't know if we're going to be able to see it. We can. It says colored only upstairs. And so again, just speaking to the history, I think this was in Ybor City back in the day. And it was just another layer. Not only is it cool photography, do I get to see these old buildings, but I get to see the way things used to be. Because there was, that was just part of what was happening. Again, not political commentary, but just to be able to see that type of thing. How many of you know that there used to be a convent in downtown Tampa? Yeah. Pretty amazing. I didn't know that. My church is right down there. I did not know there was a convent there. Now there's a tire store. But to be able to see that kind of thing. And the Academy of the Holy Names was attached to that. Some of the challenges the Burgerts faced. Let me see if I've got through here. Very few night shots. This is in Ybor City. And again, I don't know if you can see it, but over there on the side is a Piggly Wiggly where King Corona is now. Did you know there was a Piggly Wiggly in Ybor City? Night photography, because film has some challenges, especially older film. The dynamic range, the ability to see light and dark with film is significantly different than with digital photographs. For their ability to get a photograph like this is pretty astonishing. And there are a few of them, but nonetheless, pretty cool. Here's what it looks like today. Same place, same shot, but look at how much more you can see. One of the other challenges, again, as I'm looking back at this stuff, is many of these photographs, all of them, by the way, in black and white, don't really show the beauty of our city because they're black and white. When really all of these scenes had color. There is a process in the wet darkroom, the analog darkroom, it's called dodging and burning. And you can make things darker, you can make them lighter through this process. And as I looked at most of the skies in the Burgert's collection, they all looked dark. And I'm like, wow, I guess they're just burning all the skies in for whatever reason, because that's what they decided to do. Until I saw this photograph, I'm like, nope, that's pollution. This is the Tico plant that was down on the Hillsborough River where Channel 8 is now. And there's pollution all over the city. And later, there were 3 stacks. You can't really see it, but over there on the side is the coal field. I mean, there's a whole field full of coal over there. And that's the way we powered Tampa. But the skies were pretty cloudy and hazy and all that most of the time, so that solved some of the problem for me. And here's an example of it. You can see that sky. We could go outside today, similar sky, but it's bright blue versus some of the pollution that they were dealing with. So there were several challenges as here it is today. Also notice the lighting on this. It was really important for me. You can see the light is hitting the front of the building and a shadow on the side. I wanted the exact replication of what they did. Fortunately, there's an app that I have on my phone that tells me where the sun is going to be at what time. And I can sit at home and say, all right, I've got to be there at 2 o'clock, because that's when the sun's going to be there. And so I can take that shot and get this. Same light, same building, same angle, same composition, so that I get that cool replication. Again, challenge. Look at this architecture. This is on Davis Island. Unbelievable architecture. Unfortunately, what you cannot see in this is really how beautiful that building is. When you add the color and the blue sky and all of the angles, it's just such a difference. And still awesome architecture. But look at the difference in what we're able to see today through photography. All right, we're going to play a little game of Does This Still Exist?
No. Press building does.
Okay. Schulte United building. Who thinks this is still around? Nope. And so this was the Newman store press, and then Walgreens is on the other end. They tore that building down to put this in. And I won't go into the whole press block thing because that'll take another hour. Victory Theater, still in existence? Element. Goody. Come on, Tampa people. This is one of the most popular ones because Goody has such a foundation in Tampa. And Richard Gonsmar, bless his heart, he's reopened the place in Hyde Park and taken so much of the original stuff and brought it back to us. But boy, this just speaks to so many people in Tampa and parking lot. Val's Corner, still here? Gaslight Park.
Show that one more time.
That is one of the most astounding things, how alive downtown Tampa was. When you see some of these photographs and the stores and the people and the cars, and just, it was alive until we started sort of moving out and went suburban and malls opened, so retail changed and all of that. It was alive.
It's coming back though.
What is it?
It's coming back though.
It is coming back with all the building going on. Okay, still around? The building?
Yeah.
I want to ask you.
I don't think so.
Okay, that's the clinic. Anyone recognize this? It was a Gonzalez Clinic. What is it now? Well, yeah, it turned into a hotel, and now it's going into offices. But the building is still there.
I was born there.
Yeah.
I was too.
And that's again so much. I put these comparisons on Facebook. So many people chimed in about. I remember that. And to your point, the idea about mutual aid, and this was right across the street from one of the largest cigar factories ever built, from BME.
You know that building has a basement?
Does it?
It does. The Dama Center has a basement, yes.
And a tunnel.
Still exist? Silvers.
Yes.
Silver's 5 and dime. Yes, it still exists?
Yes.
Amphitheater, which has burned and now been re-roofed, and I think it's still exists. This is La Producción building.
Yes.
Parking lot.
That's the thing across from Columbia.
Colonnade Restaurant. Listen to all of you. Again, just to the heart of Tampa. Because if you went to Plant High School, if you went to South Tampa, if you liked seafood, you went to the Colonnade. And you had your Coke with olives in it. I don't know why, but that's just what you did.
They had pecan shrimp.
That's what's there.
Yeah. It's there now.
Highlight.
Oh,
Tampa people.
No.
So I put this in the book, and I'm just going to pass these around so you guys can just see what this book is.
I'll do that.
Okay. What I learned was, do not mess
I've seen it.
with Tampa's highlight. Because in the book it says the last highlight game was played on July 4th, 1979. I was quickly corrected because it was 1989.
Yeah.
And so don't mess with that kind of stuff. I love that. That people would be so engaged that they'd say, oh dude, no, you got that wrong. Okay, well just tell me. All I had to go with was my knowledge, what I could find on the internet, talking to folks around town, and so on. That's all I had. And sometimes I just beat my brain about some of this stuff, but nonetheless.
There's one in Ocala.
There is an aisle.
Ocala.
I just gave that away. Morton Williams, anyone remember this? On Dale Mabry? Is now Kirby's. Kirby's moved there, I think, in the 70s, and family-owned business, still going strong. Pretty amazing compared to, given what folks are going through these days. Zychix.
No, I know the owner of that. Bonnie Zychek, her parents owned it.
Right. Another big deal, because people went there. It was not only part of the drive-in revolution, which all restaurants were doing back in the day. These guys serve cocktails. So yeah, that's where I'm going. And this is what they're now. There was a Hollywood blockbuster video store there for a long time, and now it's there. Peter O'Knight Airport. Still there?
Yeah.
Many permutations later, it still exists. Did you know that Peter O'Knight was the primary main airport in Tampa for years? Then it went to Drew Field and eventually Tampa International Airport. But the idea of having that airport there, I mean, big planes used to land there. And this building had a dance floor, a restaurant, it was Art Deco. I mean, it was a fancy place to be. And over the course of time, as they moved operations to Drew Field, the building fell apart, as many buildings have in Tampa, and they decided to replace it. It's now, just a regional airport, but nonetheless, it still exists. This is a, sorry again for the small image, gas station on Florida Avenue. Still around?
Yes.
It is now the Independent Bar, one of the first craft beer places in Tampa. Gas station on Columbus. Still around?
Yes.
Anyone know what it is? This keeps me up at night. To be able to go and find this still looking like this, but it's still alive. Her beauty still shines through. The architecture is still there. That is awesome. That's what I love. I love the old sweaty stuff versus the nice pristine. Yes, it's all still good.
That's a good argument for historic preservation.
It absolutely is. But, oh boy, don't open that box with me, because there's so great arguments on both sides, and I won't even get into cigar factories. But man, we need to do something with those things. We need to embrace them and do something. One fire, one lightning strike, one hurricane, they are gone, and they're not coming back. And we sit here and we fight about who can do what, and yet nothing is happening. I'll open that box on another day if you invite me back. German Club, still in existence. Yes. Several mutual aid societies in Ybor City opened. This one was the German Club. It opened right at the beginning of World War I. And as the German Club, you might imagine what happened. We don't want you people here. Well, it's not us people. We're just trying to help our folks in Ybor City. We don't want you here. So it lasted for a few years. Before they closed, they eventually said, listen, we'll sponsor the Red Cross here. Whatever we need to do to keep the building open. That was it. However, it still exists. It was recently sold. It is now being opened again as a clinic for the LGBT community, and it's going to now reach its mission of mutual aid, of helping people in the community get medical services, etc. And so the fact that it took a little while for that to sort of come back around, pretty cool that this beautiful building, and they're rehabbing and adding on, is still in existence, and we're still working with it.
Yeah.
Still around? This was amazing to me. So what I did is I'd find these photos, and then I'd try to sort of find the address, and then I'd go on Google and drive down the street with Google, and when I came up on this church, still there, that is so cool. And I showed this to people, I'm like, well, where the heck is that? Columbus Rock. I know we don't have a lot of time, but let's, any questions or thoughts or anything like that?